Imagine watching $1 billion vanish with a single click. In 2016, the world's most trusted global payments network was breached, and the thieves walked away with $81 million. All it took was an ordinary email, a single careless download, and a tiny spelling mistake that stopped a disaster in its tracks. Bangladesh's central bank sits at the heart of a nation's economy, a place where gold reserves, foreign currency, and digital transactions flow like a river. Every day, the bank relies on the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, the SWIFT system, to move money across borders. SWIFT links more than 11,000 financial institutions, handling trillions of dollars in transfers, and its reputation for security is almost legendary. The bank's internal network was designed to look impenetrable. A core banking system fed into a dedicated SWIFT gateway, protected by firewalls and a virtual private network used only for routine maintenance. On paper, the security policy demanded two-factor authentication, daily password changes, and a dual control process where two senior officers had to approve any transaction over $100,000. It felt like a fortress built on layers of protocol and technology. But the human element is often the weakest link. One morning, a junior IT officer named Rashid opened his inbox and saw a message that seemed urgent. The subject line read, "Urgent new software update." The email appeared to come from a trusted vendor, and a link promised a necessary patch. Rashid clicked, downloaded the attachment, and unknowingly introduced malicious code into the bank's network. The malware was a sophisticated piece of ransomware that slipped past the perimeter defenses and found its way to the SWIFT interface. It silently recorded login credentials, disabled some of the monitoring tools, and waited for the perfect moment to act. The attackers, a well-organized cybercrime group, had been watching the bank's traffic for weeks, mapping out which accounts could be accessed and how the dual control approvals could be bypassed. When the night shift began, the malicious program sprang into action. It used the stolen credentials to log into the SWIFT gateway, forged authentication tokens, and began issuing a series of fraudulent transfer messages. The first batch instructed the bank to send $10 million to a shell company in the United States, the next $15 million to a subsidiary in the United Kingdom, and so on. In total, the scheme attempted to move a little over $1 billion out of the Bangladeshi account. The transfers were cleverly disguised as legitimate payments, complete with fabricated invoices and reference numbers. Most of the receiving banks initially accepted the messages because they came through the trusted SWIFT channel. Money started its journey across continents, heading for a network of offshore accounts and eventually landing in casinos in the Philippines, where it could be quickly laundered. Just as the thieves thought they were about to pull off the heist of the century, a tiny error tripped an alarm. One of the fabricated beneficiaries was listed as Foundation instead of the correct spelling, Foundation. The misspelling caught the eye of a compliance officer at an intermediary bank in Hong Kong who flagged the transaction for further review. That single typo halted the flow of funds, prompting an urgent investigation that uncovered the broader fraud. What do you think about a single typo stopping $1 billion theft? Let me know in the comments. The discovery of the typo set off a chain reaction that rippled through the global banking community like a sudden tremor. Within minutes of the Hong Kong compliance officer flagging the misspelled entry, the intermediary bank froze the outgoing wire and sent an urgent alert back through the SWIFT network. That alert acted like a flare in the night, drawing the attention of the central bank's own security team and the investigative units of the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United Kingdom's National Crime Agency, and the Philippines Anti-Money Laundering Office. Investigators quickly pieced together a timeline that showed the malicious software had been lying dormant for weeks, patiently gathering credentials, mapping transaction limits, and rehearsing the exact sequence of messages needed to bypass the dual control approval process. The attackers had crafted a sophisticated script that could automatically generate a new transfer request, insert a fabricated invoice, and then route the payment through a series of shell corporations designed to obscure the trail. By the time the typo was spotted, the hackers had already managed to push more than $80 million into a series of accounts in the Philippines, where the funds were swiftly funneled into high-stakes casino chips and then laundered through a network of cash-intensive businesses. The fallout was immediate and severe. The Bangladesh Central Bank's reputation took a hard hit, and confidence in its ability to safeguard the nation's foreign reserves wavered. International partners demanded answers, and the bank's board convened an emergency meeting to assess the damage and chart a path forward. Senior executives faced intense scrutiny, and several high-ranking officials resigned under pressure. In the weeks that followed, the bank's IT department worked around the clock, dismantling the malicious code, patching vulnerable entry points, and overhauling the authentication mechanisms that had been exploited. New policies were introduced that required multi-factor authentication on every SWIFT transaction, real-time monitoring of outbound payments, and a mandatory verification step for any beneficiary name that did not match an approved list. Meanwhile, law enforcement agencies around the globe coordinated a massive effort to trace the stolen cash. The United States Department of Justice filed a series of civil forfeiture actions against the casino operators that had accepted the illicit chips, arguing that they had willfully ignored red flags and facilitated money laundering. The Philippines Anti-Corruption Commission launched raids on several gambling establishments, seizing cash and equipment believed to be linked to the scheme. Although a substantial portion of the $81 million was ultimately recovered, the majority of the funds vanished into a web of offshore accounts, making full restitution impossible. The case also sparked a broader conversation about the inherent vulnerabilities of the SWIFT system, which, despite its reputation for security, relies heavily on the integrity of each participating institution's internal controls. Experts pointed out that the network's design, while robust against external attacks, can be compromised when insiders unknowingly grant access to malicious actors. The Bangladesh incident became a cautionary tale that underscored the importance of a zero-trust approach, where no user or device is automatically trusted regardless of its location within the network. Financial institutions worldwide began to reassess their own exposure, implementing stricter verification protocols and investing in advanced anomaly detection tools that leverage artificial intelligence to spot irregularities in transaction patterns. Some banks introduced a double-check requirement for any beneficiary name that deviated even slightly from a known entity, hoping to catch typographical errors before they could cause damage. Training programs were revamped to emphasize phishing awareness, ensuring that employees could recognize suspicious emails and understand the potentially catastrophic consequences of a single click. Beyond the technical upgrades, the human element emerged as the most critical line of defense. The typo that saved billions was a stark reminder that even the smallest oversight can become a powerful safeguard. It also highlighted how vigilant staff, whether in a compliance role, a back-office operation, or an IT support desk, can act as the final barrier against sophisticated cybercrime. In the aftermath, many banks instituted regular red team exercises, simulating phishing attacks and other intrusion attempts to test the readiness of their personnel and the resilience of their systems. Looking back, the Bangladesh bank heist stands as one of the most audacious cyber financial crimes in modern history. It demonstrated how a coordinated group of attackers could exploit a blend of technology, human error, and procedural gaps to orchestrate a theft on a scale previously thought impossible. Yet it also showed that the same imperfections that open doors can, under the right circumstances, become the very locks that keep the thieves out. So what does this story teach us about the future of digital banking? First, that no system, no matter how fortified, can ever be completely immune to intrusion without continuous vigilance. Second, that the human factor is both a vulnerability and a strength. Empowering employees with knowledge and awareness can turn potential liabilities into powerful safeguards. And finally, that even the tiniest detail, a misspelled word, a momentary hesitation, can tip the balance between disaster and recovery. If you found this deep dive into the Bangladesh SWIFT hack eye-opening, let me know in the comments below. Share your thoughts on how banks can better protect themselves, or tell us about another cybercrime that left you stunned. And if you think the world needs more stories that unpack the hidden layers of digital security, give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss the next investigation. Your support helps keep these stories coming, and together we can stay one step ahead of the threats that shape our financial future. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.